Have you accepted the terms of this recording, Daniel?
Got it.
Awesome. Welcome to Target Practice on episode 30. Come on, Daniel, help me out here.
37.
37. I'm pretty proud of us. 37
Yeah.
episodes so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we took 3 months off.
Was it that long?
Yeah, it was a full 3 months to get
Wow.
to like kind of reassess how we were processing our content. That's the way to say it, right?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Well, I'm glad to be back. I'm enjoying this a lot. It's been really fun. It's been fun hearing the feedback I'm getting from folks. And this is a great gift to get to do this with you.
It's really cool. I have to say it enriches my life you know what? It's a great conversation piece, and people get really excited. That's one thing I liked about Joe Rogan when he said that everyone should do a podcast. He was like, everyone should do a podcast. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Part of me wishes I had never stopped because I started 5 years ago and wish I had continued the momentum because it was something speaking to me a long time ago, but ho hum. Okay. Sarah.
It's not, I think people think that maybe it's a egotistical thing. Like you presume that you have something to offer, but it's almost like it's so worth it just to do it for yourself.
I feel like I have insatiable person curiosity. Like I want to know what makes everyone tick. And
you do.
And I want to hear about their childhood, and I want to hear about their traumas, and I want to hear about their wins.
I was born in Minatitlan, Mexico. I appreciate you asking. No.
When are we going to talk about that? That was, I feel like something we teased at the very beginning in the very, very first prologue episode.
No, it got tricky because of the book. I asked some people should we do a podcast around this story that I've lived? You know,
I mean, you're not joking. You were born in Mexico, and that's why I'm getting excited. And that's why I'm like,
no, I have a good story to tell for sure.
Holy
it's
shit,
just that
man.
In telling that story through a podcast, you give away the ending, and then it potentially makes it less interesting for agents to want to publish or help you publish a book.
Wild.
And that's what we're trying to do, right, Ron?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We are trying to publish.
You're going to tell the whole story of your cowboy, No Country for Old Men Western on the podcast?
Oh, yeah, it's good. Good point. Good point. Okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
But maybe there's a way to shoot the gap.
I think we should figure that out. There is a line that needs to be walked. And maybe you just start with the origin at some point.
Yeah.
Just the beginning. Because I think the beginning is the hook, the freaking sharpest barbed hook. Like once that thing gets in your mouth, it's not coming out. Like
what happened to my mom in 1983? Is that
and you and just like the first maybe from 1980 to 83.
Well, I think we told that story on grief. On grief.
That's right.
Episode.
Yeah.
But you know what we need to do maybe is do it because you and I with this podcast, right? We're probably always will be refining and exploring the potential of having a platform, of creating a platform like this,
Right. Yeah.
And I think another one of our, and we have a lot of little ideas, right? The little dog walk, like we have the dog walk episodes that we haven't done yet.
Yeah.
Those are going to be cool. And for listeners, just a little tease. Ronald takes his dog for a walk every evening, and he'll call me sometimes. He calls people sometimes on that person. And we have really good conversations. They're a little more loose, a little more, a little shooting from the hip, and they're really fun and we laugh a lot. And so we thought maybe we could do an episode and have a conversation around a topic while he's doing that. And probably
I'm into this.
We need to do. You bought the gear too.
Everybody wants to hear what I'm thinking at 9 p.m. at night. Walking around.
Sometimes you smoke a little Pacalolo, and
a little bit happens.
Maybe I've had a whiskey or two,
Yeah. We're the smartest men we've ever met in our life.
But anyways, I think that another one of our little we could try a sequential, like a little series.
A mini series. I like that idea. Well, I know who we've got coming on. He's going to be coming on in a few minutes here, but why don't you give us a little hint of what we're about to step into?
Yeah. Colin Daring. Actually, what about those quotes that you were just reading? I thought that was really cool. He was posting those quotes on Instagram, and a lot of them really resonated with things that we care about, or align
yeah, man.
Things that we care about.
Yeah. I mean, a couple were hitting me. You were born with wings. Why prefer to crawl through life? Come on, man. I love that.
I didn't hear you say actually not my favorite one. Are you serious? That's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like 5 for 5 in all the ones that you read before.
You didn't like that one?
I don't
Come
know.
on,
You're born
Daniel.
with wings.
Jesus, come on.
It's a little bit like, like I don't want to. I don't. No, I'm not gonna. Say
How about
anything.
this one? We suffer more often in our imagination than in reality. I mean, isn't that the damn truth?
That's like that quote that says a coward dies 1,000 deaths.
Huh?
You know what I mean? Because they're always thinking about the thing they're afraid of, and they experience it over and over. Yeah.
I heard anxiety the other day referred to as a conspiracy theory about yourself.
Maybe the result of a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I got some more for you. Whatever you aren't changing, you are choosing. Remember that.
Yeah. See, that's a good one.
That one's tough because that one's like, you gotta own your life.
I mean, exactly. And maybe that's an extreme way to say that, and maybe it's not 100% true, right? But it speaks to, maybe it could be tweaked a little bit to take the edge off of things that you just can't change. Like I can't change that I'm, not 6'3". You know what I mean? There's certain things you just can't change. You could change your perspective on it and the way you feel about it. But what I do like about that is that I do think, Ron, there's so much that we can change and that we are choosing that we think we're not choosing, and that people maybe complain about, and take the power back.
Break that down for me a little bit, because I'm like kind of following you, but I'm something feels
okay. Well, like you think about something in your life, and as we talk, maybe we can come up with an example, but there's something in my life that maybe I complain about, like I have to take care of somebody, a family member, and I don't like doing it, and I complain about it. And maybe it's something I can't change. I still have to do it, but what I can change is the way that I feel about it, way I respond to it, and maybe some of the supportive things around it. And maybe I can change that in such a way that I do enjoy it more. It's more integrated into the rest of my life and aligns with what I want to do with my life. But at the very least, I can change my perspective on it, my take on it. That's what that Viktor Frankl thing was all about. When he went to Auschwitz and realized the one thing that the Nazis couldn't take away from him was his response to what they were doing with him. That's fucking gangster.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, now I'm following you. I get it now. That's interesting. I was listening to Brene Brown interview Jason Sudeikis and his writing partner for Ted Lasso today.
Awesome. Really? Brene Brown interviewed them?
Dude.
How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like no one should ever record a podcast again after that episode. No, I mean, it's not. I mean, what's fun is hearing these guys really quickly talk about how much of the show is about their relationship, their personal relationship, and their kind of cultural relationship with, you guessed it, guilt and shame, and how they had such an insight into that, the lack of that in different cultures. So they both lived for extended amount of time in Amsterdam, and there is like a anti-guilt and shame culture there, like a zeitgeist.
Really?
And Brene was like chimed in. She's like, oh yeah, the most American emotions that exist are guilt and shame.
Whoa.
Yeah. Man, and
Amsterdam.
And I think about that. Well, there's a whole, they go on breaking that down with Amsterdam, why that's a culture in Holland.
In the words of Jules from Pulp Fiction, I'm going, man. That's all there is to it. I'm fucking going.
Well said. Okay. Yeah, man.
What do you say?
I think it ties back to this, and that you can change how you feel about something, and it might take some rewiring. It might take a hard reboot in some way. It might take like gentle, constant pressure over years and years, but you can change it. And
extreme radical accountability. You can't play the victim.
Hit me with that one. Yeah.
You can't play the victim. Like one time I was, and I hear you, like this gets dicey, right? Because one time I was talking about depression with someone, and this was a few years ago, and I didn't have as much kindness and awareness around this discussion. And I kind of hinted a little bit, like subtly, that they had they might have a little bit more control over their experience of depression.
Yeah.
And they got fucking pissed. They were like, how dare you say that? I suffer this. And, it was just like,
yeah.
We didn't continue the conversation, and it didn't get into an argument or weird, but I did realize like she was very protective of her depression. And it was like something, and even that word, the best way to start, I think a really subtle, strong way to start to separate oneself from the being possessed and controlled and overwhelmed by things is to stop saying that it's your depression and your anxiety. It's my depression, my anxiety, my this, my that. Just say it's my experience of that, and it just creates a little gap, a little distance for you to get a little wiggle room and take your power back. And it makes it temporary.
Man. Yeah.
Something moving through you instead of something you're hanging on to.
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. Maybe I don't mean to be disrespectful, people like ownership over their experience, but like, it's just that now it's your experience. It's still your experience. It's just not your depression. It's your experience of depression. Maybe that provides a little room to go bye-bye.
I think I have been around a fair amount of like actually clinically depressed people. And I think your friend or acquaintance, whoever it was, has probably had the kind of experience where it feels like they've done absolutely everything they can to change. And in my culture where I grew up, it was the way out of depression was prayer and asking God to take it away. And when you have this faith, and this is totally my experience, not your friends. I don't know what their experience was like. But there's another layer of shame on top of that just experience, because then you start asking God for it to go away and it doesn't go away. And then you start thinking, well, something's wrong with me. God doesn't like me. God doesn't approve of me. This is my burden to carry, any number of those things. So I can see, and then it turns into resentment and all kinds of other crazy shit. And so I can see why someone would feel such ownership of something like that after going through who knows what they've gone through to try to deal with it.
I get that too. And I have been overwhelmed by a mental illness. My experience was anxiety, and it was long lasting. Well, not consistently through years. But I do get that. I can't empathize. And I've experienced depression. It was not chronic, but I experienced the level that would make you want to just not live anymore.
Sure.
And if I were experiencing that for more than a few days or more than a few weeks or all day, I get that. You're out, I'm done. And and you don't feel like you have any power to get out of it. Like I've experienced that. I've also experienced getting out of that, but my experience of depression was not a chronic thing. It was not like, I when I did try something and do something, it usually eventually worked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hear you. And if it is that place, fuck it. If you want to say it's my depression, and you're just like, and tell people to F off if they think that you can just get out of it.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's so similar. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've realized shit, sometimes our brain is just as inoperable as, a fucking gene expressing itself as cancer or something in us that like, it's a sick, disgusting luck of the draw. And that's tough as shit, man. That's really tough.
I wonder what our man Colin Daring would say about this.
I'm eager for him to get on and tell me.
It's like, I'm curious what he has experienced in life, because that's the thing about him that's interesting is he's doing all this incredible physical stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not 20 or 30.
Do you know how old he is?
I don't, and I don't want to age him.
Yeah.
But he presents, and you look at him and you're like, you've lived, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some decades. And I wonder what he's gone through, and I wonder what.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I'm really curious about that too. I'm curious like how he's I'm very curious about that, because I think there's like, if you are getting to whatever age he's at and thriving the way he looks like he's thriving, like you've learned how to do some fucking mental, spiritual jiu-jitsu on top of the physical stuff you're doing. I got a lot more questions about that. Maybe we can come back to it on the either a different episode or a different thing, but Colin is here.
Awesome.
Are you ready for our guest?
I love it. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Colin Daring, You are a world-renowned kettlebell instructor. You fell in love with fitness during your military service and have now been in the fitness industry for over 20 years. Though you do teach a simple at-home workout series, you also have perfected and refined a series of advanced kettlebell sequences. You believe in eating well, smiling more, varying one's training, investing in oneself, that all you need is less, and in upholding the well-being and longevity of the pack. Welcome, Colin Daring.
Oh man, let me clap that up.
Yeah, I'm gonna clap on that one too. That's good, dude.
That's awesome.
That's what I think. We need a round of applause every time you read one of those, Daniel. That's good.
Well, you know what? Maybe the
That
key is
was good.
keeping them a little shorter, because that one felt like it, it just got to the point, said the thing, and now we're off. Let's talk about
you nailed it.
Wow.
Colin Daring is your real name. You were talking
correct.
to us about it a little bit beforehand. Right. You got dared a lot in high school.
Yeah, it was junior high school. Once people kind of find out my last name was Daring, it'd be like, yo, I dare you. And growing up in New York, you had to have a little edge, and I would live up to that Daring last name. I have an older brother. Okay. And he was, for lack of a better word, he was a tough guy. He was in the street. So I was always kind of aspired to be like my brother. So I was always standing my ground and not taking any shit, and I just lived up to that name. So that Daring name is it rang some bells for a little while out here.
Man.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, how did you survive that? Was military, spirituality, working out? What like got you out of that? What kept you from going down that darkness?
Because I'm the youngest. I have a brother, sister in the middle, and I'm the youngest one. My brother was hard-headed, streets got to him young, fast life. He's a good guy now, drives trucks cross country, which is good for him because it keeps him away from people.
Good.
My sister, on the other hand, was super brilliant. Skipped grades in school, graduated early, was in med school, preparing to be a doctor. So the thing was always going to be like Dr. Daring, but then she just kind of burnt out. It was too much, and then she just ended up being a registered nurse.
Yeah,
which
is a legit hard job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So me on the other hand, I was always be like your sister, not like your brother. Growing up, my parents are back. I'll give you a little bit of history of my background. My parents are from Jamaica, hardworking. They went from Jamaica to England. I was born in England. Everybody moved to America. So my family was always hardworking. There's always a cliche of a Jamaican having like 10 different jobs. Like that was their thing. So, which is kind of like what I do now. So it was always like, be like your sister, not like your brother. So I was always fighting to get my own identity in the house growing up. So I was like, I want to be like me. Yeah. Which kept me always trying different things and doing different things. And my mother and father was always not wanting me to get caught up in the street life. Because it was, we're talking late 80s, early 90s. It was a big drug explosion in where we're from in Brooklyn. And ironically, my brother was actually kept me off of the street. Because if he saw me hanging out on the corner, he would say, get off the corner. He was like, until you can beat me, then you can't hang out here. Whoa. So because he had such a heavy reputation being in the street, he would threaten everybody on the corner. If they saw me on the corner with them, they would get beat up too. So I couldn't hang out on the corners. Started putting me in the parks, working out, training. I was big into like BMX, bikes, tricks, stuff like that. Is that right? I was always doing some sort of tricky something. Yeah. And my parents, I remember having, I won't say I was a weird kid, but I always wanted to be different. That was my thing. Yeah. I remember having a unicycle at a really young age. And it was like, I wanted a unicycle so bad for Christmas. Amazing. And I got a unicycle. So then I would be the kid on the block. I had a unicycle and could ride like a wheel for a whole entire block length. So that kind of kept me out of the street life, the dark road, I would say. Yeah. And I really wasn't good in school because I just didn't like school. maybe I had like ADD at the time, but you know, you wasn't getting diagnosed back then. You just like, oh, he's a bad kid.
Right, totally.
So
he's just a bad kid. Right.
So I remember my father saying, if you're not gonna be brain smart, you have to be physically smart or physically strong, because the types of jobs that you're gonna get if you're not gonna be smart, it's gonna be a physical job, like contracting, something like that. So he wanted me to get stronger. He brought me a weight bench, and that was my introduction to fitness.
Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. Did that insult you?
Not at all.
That's amazing, man.
Not at all, because my father's concept was, he was hard on all the kids to be book smart. You had to read. We would, if the TV was on too long, we'd be like, turn off the TV, go read a book. That was his thing. So along with that, he was saying there are different types of jobs that you're gonna have. My father's was he was a mechanic, airline mechanic. He worked for, I think it was like TWA for years.
Okay.
So he would say, if you can't read a book, learn a trade. So he was like, if you're gonna learn a trade, you have to be physically strong in trade work. So we're talking carpentry, mechanic, plumbing. And he would teach me all of these things. So he was like, if you're too weak, you can't turn a wrench. If you're too weak, you can't drive a nail. So he was always saying you have to get physically strong and mentally strong. And he knew early on that the two work together.
Yeah. That's cool. It's
mental
like
toughness drove your physical toughness.
It's funny too. It's like, turn off the TV and read a book. I don't want to read a book. Good. You don't want to read a book? Learn a trade. It's like,
yes,
buy the next thing, you know? Fine.
That's
I'll roll with that.
That's exceedingly good advice. I mean, that's really, really good advice from your dad. Is he still with us? Your dad's still alive?
He's not. Man. He passed. Yeah. Man, but it's kind of like, even though he's passed a long time, everybody still talks about him to this day. It'd be like, oh, your father this, or oh, Uncle Sonny. If my cousins would, his name was Sonny, it'd be like, Uncle Sonny said this. And he always was a knowledgeable, he always felt grumpy to me. But when I talk to other people, they'd be like, yo, your father loved you so much. He was always talking about you. And I'd be like, damn, you never told me. But you know, it was kind of like in hindsight. Looking back at all the little lessons he would teach me that really just kind of has me well-rounded today.
So Colin, I was going to say, me and Ronald were looking through your Instagram together earlier today, and you have, you post quotes every once in a while like that, and you do seem to have a strong sense of I don't know, you seem to recognize and have some wisdom. And I'm curious, we got the fitness, we got the skill. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that other aspect of you has grown over the years?
Wow. I grew up in church a lot. Different religions for some reason. My mother was Baptist, and then we spent some time in like a Catholic religion. And a lot of my friends were Muslim. So there was always a cross of religious aspects. And I think over the years, and my wife, her family is Southern Baptist, and it seems like every other uncle was a preacher, oddly enough.
Wow, yeah.
But I always felt like, not to get too deep or too crazy,
I'm into it, dude. Yeah.
I always felt like religion was almost a tool to separate people more than bring them together.
Sure.
In Brooklyn, there's a heavy Jewish Orthodox community. And even within the Jewish Orthodox community, there are two separate Orthodox communities in Brooklyn. So you would see different religions all over Brooklyn, because I'm a Brooklyn native. So after kind of dabbling in or listening to each religion, it brought me back to being more spiritual and more universally grounded within myself. And I just think like everything's connected in some way. Like say like a 6 degrees of separation. I always feel like you're always one person away from meeting who you really want to meet. So I'm always interested to talk to and meet other people, because like some people say I'm too open or too inviting, but I always feel like that one person that you speak to may know somebody else that who you're really supposed to be speaking to.
That's cool.
Or enlightening to somebody else to maybe having them see. So I think I've turned more spiritual, I would say, more grounded. I meditate every morning, and I don't do anything before I kind of meditate. I call it like putting on my mental armor.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that the days that I slip up and I don't meditate and I see something and it affects me the wrong way, and I just kind of hold that energy pattern throughout my day.
What's tactically, what's the meditation that you do? Like, what do you like, or the array or like, you know, a couple different ones that you do?
I've been hooked on, there's this app called an Insight Timer.
Oh yeah. I got that.
Yeah. So I just go to like guided 20 minutes and I randomly pick.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Right. So it always feels like sometimes I'm in there searching. So I would like, on a day, I'll be like, I want to be grateful. So I would look for a gratitude meditation. I want to be more grounded. I would look for a grounded meditation. And then sometimes I would just randomly scroll and if something looks good, I'll hit it. And it always feels like it's what I needed for that day.
You know, when we were going through some of your quotes you were posting, the one that I like, it's kind of up in my life, has been for quite a while. I really appreciated and enjoyed, and this was saying in a different way, it was essentially speaking around what you can change. Excuse me. What's the quote, Ronald? It was like, you can change anything. Anything that
whatever you aren't changing, you're choosing.
You're choosing.
Remember
and
that.
Yes.
I feel like that just gives the power back in whatever way is possible to people, you know?
My favorite is Mashimoto, the samurai.
Yeah.
And his thing was, you don't need anything outside of yourself. Like everybody's always searching for something else to complete them, where they really don't need anything else outside of themselves to make them whole. And I think a lot of people are caught up on, they need that flashy car, they need that jewelry, and it makes them who they are, but it really doesn't.
How do you relate that to that quote about anything that you're not changing, like you're choosing?
I would relate it to say you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
And it's abusive relationship. And you know it's abusive, but you stay in that relationship. So then you're making that choice to not get away.
Yeah.
So then you're choosing that relationship for yourself.
Potentially because you think you need it to be whole.
Right. Or not even that you need it to be whole. You don't want to look like you failed in some sort of aspect to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like everybody seems to be so not wanting to look like what they truly are.
Yeah. Dude, you're okay.
That's cool, man. I know. I'm thinking about you, Ron.
Let's step back on this one, man.
Okay. Say about this.
So a big reason this podcast exists is because I believe, I don't even know if I've vocalized this exactly the way I'm about to say it to Daniel in the past, is men are, or I believe men are in a constant process of refining themselves continually. And I think the best place to do it is in the company of other men. And you have the Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.
Yes.
And I've never mentioned that to Daniel, but it has been in the back of my mind for the last year or in some change that we've been doing this, or year that we've been doing this. And when I saw that today, I read it to Daniel. I said, Daniel, this is our relationship this year, man. And this is what's been happening as we've been having folks like you on the podcast, where I'm hearing you teach and you're sharpening me, right? Life dulls us. Life dulls the parts of us that are being used all the time, and it needs tender care. Sharpening something is a tender process. You can jack it up, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. But then then that process of like over and over and over again, having these kinds of conversations, sometimes about the same stuff we talk about all the time, but it needs to happen.
Right.
And for me, man, I grew up in a church culture like you did. My grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister. My mother, was basically a minister. I went to school to be a minister. And that path, I didn't go down that path, but in that process, man, I lost myself because I was trying to do everything everybody wanted me to do. My dad left us when we were little. So it's like, that 3 to 5 year gap when something happens like that, like every kid thinks it's their fault, even though they may not even say it. So they're trying to act in a way to keep them safe. They're trying to act in a way to keep mom and dad happy, to keep the teachers happy, the pastor happy, all those things. And I was just telling Daniel, man, like sometimes I'm talking and I'm like, I don't even know how to let the real part of me out.
Right.
I have no access to that part of myself that really is the one that I want to be. Yeah. And as I'm hearing you, I'm like, oh, this is how it happens. Like I talk to Colin and a small layer of my false self comes off and a true layer kind of comes to the surface, or I have these conversations with Daniel a lot. We're very close. And it happens that way, man. I really appreciate that.
Do you experience that? Do you know what we're talking about? Like, because I feel like what you're saying, Ron, is rampant in the world. Like we have and there's all this conversation around. There's the shadow self that we don't want to let out. There's the persona that has to keep everything cool. There's alter egos. That some people like create an alter ego, and then what me and Ron have been talking about a lot lately is like, I've got some shitty parts of myself that just they want to live, and there's a way for them to live appropriately in this world. What does that look like? And that's just another discussion we didn't think about. We talked to you about, but that's been on our mind a lot. Do you have some like something to say about that or some awareness around that?
Man, I think for men in general, we tend to compartmentalize a lot of different aspects of ourselves.
Interesting. Men more than like women, kind of, is that?
I would say definitely men more than women, because men have especially in today's society, there's so much pressure on men to be like this grand man. It's like the dimensions have changed. It's like you got to be the provider, you got to take care of everybody, and there's nobody saying, let's help take care of you. You have to do everything, and nobody's looking out for you in the aspect of who are you leaning on, unless you have a good friend that you can lean on. And then it's almost like when you go to lean on your friend, you don't want to show a weakness per se, because it takes away from you being that man. Did I say that right?
I'm following you.
Do you believe that though? Because I don't believe that. Like I believe us, and I don't get the impression you do, but like I think a discussion around what a whole man, and I don't even really use the word man as much as just adult, an adult human.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying lately. I've been adulting a lot lately.
Yeah, man. And part of adulting is like crying, and Ronald and I have that relationship where we've broken down in front of each other, and I think we actually value doing that because there's something about someone else witnessing that part that feels important. Yeah, it does. Yeah. It feels important.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if I have a superpower, if there's any part of me that feels extra outside of myself, it's being able to access my vulnerability and admit the pain I'm feeling. At least I may not be able to access like the real part of me the way I want to, but admitting that I'm suffering or in pain or don't have the answer is has gotten easy for me. And I think that's, some of that's my church upbringing. Some of it's just me wanting to change.
And I think that's what I mean by compartmentalizing is when those feelings arise, we just kind of box them and put them on the side. And then there's a bunch of different boxes that we have that we need to open and kind of look inside and deal with. And I think for me, last month was really weird. Like I was feeling so just drained from I get a lot of side conversations from other men, just people in general, just saying, how do you do it? How do you stay focused? How do you keep up your training? How do you keep yourself up? And I'm always like giving advice, giving my point of view, kind of explaining my structure for a day in my life. And it just felt like I was giving out so much that I was just drained completely. And I felt myself kind of just drawing in and stepping back and not being as outgoing and not posting. And I really just kind of sat back and was really being still and trying to see what it was. And I think it was I had to open that box of saying, I couldn't be all things to all people. And I had to really just say, no, I don't have the time right now. Or because I'm usually like, all right, I'll make time. And my day was just being so sporadic that I wasn't having the time for myself other than the 30, 20 minutes that I was meditating in the morning. And then it was like, my day was just gone. Because normally I would have 1 or 2 days that I could set aside for myself, one to just decompress and one to have my own training for myself. Cause that was my part of my meditation to get away. And I had took on too many clients. I was doing too many things. I just lost it, just trying to keep up. So this month was, I promised myself I would get back to taking the day, at least one day to just have to myself, my own time, decompress and do whatever I wanted to do.
It's it relates kind of to what we're talking about with those boxes. I mean, I know that's why you brought it up, but the way it relates to me or to something that it's like kind of important I've been curious about is in like Jungian psychology, there's the idea of the shadow and the ego, and then there's like opposites gender aspects of yourself. But another aspect is the persona, right? And that's just that mask we put on like subconsciously as soon as we're around another person, like aspects of this mask go up. And I think what happens a lot and what you're speaking to is that we spend too much time with that mask on, which usually comes up around other people, or if we're recording something that we know other people are gonna, and it's fucking exhausting, it's exhausting to this other aspect of ourselves. Like, fucking put that down, man. I want to live.
And I really tried to, I thought it was interesting that you said, you sent me the message saying I was looking for things online about you. And I purposely don't put a lot of information out about myself because I feel like everybody wants a part of you or to know more about you, especially about like your personal life. And I had lived, just to backtrack a little bit, I had lived very publicly for about 12 years. My wife and I had a fashion boutique in Brooklyn. The name of it was Pieces. And at the time we were breaking into the fashion industry. We had made a Vogue article in Vogue magazine. Wow. And I think that we were one of the youngest Black couples to have a pioneering small boutique that was known all over the place. And because of that, we were just out in the public eye and everybody wanted to know everything about our relationship. And what do we do? What are we eating? Where are we going? And it just, you could walk down the street like, hey, that's the Darings, And it was just like, this go round with social media. I said that I wouldn't have my family on Front Street. It'd be just about what you see, and that's just me working out. We have another business. It's a vegan restaurant. and she's the chef at the restaurant, and it's called Greedy Vegan, Greedy Kitchen. And we kind of keep them separate, and there's very little overlap. And unless we say, hey, I'm part owner of Greedy Kitchen, or my husband's like this kettlebell guy, you would never really know unless you know us. And we're known like in the New York area, Brooklyn area, as like the couple to be. But for social media wise, outside, you would never know. And we kind of like it like that. It's interesting to see. Like somebody was eating at the restaurant the other day, and she was saying, hey, how's your husband, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was big into fitness. So she was like, oh, you work out? Well, maybe you've seen my husband before. And she shows him a picture. He was like, that's your husband? Like, you know this guy? And he was like, I see him in the gym. I see him online. He was like, I can't believe that you even know this man right now. You're telling me that's your husband. And it was really interesting that we can be so close and people just don't know. And that's how funny it is with like social media. People only know what you put out. And if you're not putting out a lot, it's just, they won't know anything other than what you let them see.
That's kind of like what Ronald and I are talking about with, we're talking about compartmentalizing, and some things are compartmentalized and some things are intertwined too much, you know, and sometimes separating things and letting them have their own lives really lets them flourish. Right. But sometimes the opposite, you know, and just figuring out how and what and when with one's personality and one's career and one's finances and one's romance, you know,
I'm impressed. I'm impressed because that's not just compartmentalization. What you described, that's boundaries. Like you described boundaries, like healthy boundaries in your life. And that's another problem with people who don't know themselves, is they've got really ugly boundaries. Like we overextend on certain things and then like create walls in other ways, so much that we get completely separated from our ability to know who we are. And we want someone to tell us the answer, or we want to like bulldoze through a problem.
Well, Ron, are there ways that you like, I'm just curious, I want to put you on the spot for a second.
Yeah.
Because you said if that's a problem with people who don't know themselves, is they don't know how to set boundaries. But I know that there's areas in your life that you do that we've been talking about a little bit. I'm just
setting
curious.
Boundaries.
Like, I'm just curious about a weak spot, not weak, like a soft spot, place that is ready for improvement for you regarding boundaries. Where's an area in your life, Ron, that you can set better boundaries? That's what I'm saying. Or take a boundary down that needs to get.
That's a good question. Probably, I'm, because of the awareness I've had around this for the last couple of years, really started, I think, really understanding. I knew it about myself 10 years ago, but I didn't really like understand it and was able to take serious action on it until about 2 years ago. And for me then, saying no to job opportunities, friends who wanted to hang out, people who needed help, those kinds of things was like kind of the primary place I began to do that. And I found value in it from other people growing up by being the person who could fix shit in emergencies, who could think clearly when everything else is melting down, and be the guy who could fix the flat tire on the side of the highway, you know,
that would be me.
Wrap up someone's wound, whatever it is. And I've kind of become the default of that in my family. And I don't mind that most of the time. Most of the time, I don't mind that with my family. But I'm also seeing now, you know, I've got a son who's 15, a daughter who is 9, she'll be 10 in February. You know, my wife and I own a business together. We run a business together. And I'm finding that boundaries within my family are where I'm having to like, that's my next place. Because sometimes it's like shit goes wrong. Everyone's like, well, let's just wait for dad to fix it. And then it could have been resolved hours ago, or, you know, whatever it was.
Right. And you just reminded me I have to fix something.
That sucks, man.
And it's an addiction. I want to talk about addiction a little bit, Colin, because that the addiction is, I can solve most things, right? Like there's this feeling that's like, I can fix anything. I can deal with whatever's coming along. And suddenly I'm the hero and I feel good because everyone's grateful that I did that. But I also said no in saying yes to those, to the things in my life that are not going to change unless I give them attention. They're not going to grow unless I work on them. And those are my, you know, for instance, my portion of my job with my wife. So my wife and I own a personal development company. She's got her basket of clients. I have my basket of clients, and because of my personality, I spend a lot of my time helping her with her side of the business and growing, and it needs that sometimes. I don't put the same effort in my side of the business, and that's another boundary, I think, Daniel, is to like put the effort and discipline into growing what my voice, what I want to say, how I want to say it.
Earlier on, when I was saying as being the man, that's what I'm talking about, because you're giving to your wife, and at the same time, nobody's pouring that energy back into you.
Nailed it. Yeah. It's a dilemma, man. It's a real, it's a serious dilemma with men. And I speak to dudes who have some version of that story ad nauseum, you know, like they're in real estate, they're in they own a restaurant, they like all kinds of stuff, all kinds, doesn't matter, but it's that same dynamic. Well said, man. Well said.
And then you're like, even with that, and you may really need that help, you can't complain. You have to suck it up because you're the man. That's what it is.
Yeah. I think, Daniel, right now, because of you, I'm trying to start to build my like virtual board of directors, like men that I can call on and ask for advice on any kind of weird, wacky shit that I would normally be embarrassed. Like I'd be Googling it first. and I found out, like, man, that one is talking to a dude as soon as I can, lessens the internal anxiety of what I think it means to have the problem. And I'll give you almost
like a validation that you're not the only one with the problem.
Totally.
Because everybody is virtually on some sort of level going through the same situation.
Yeah.
I mean, like coming home to find dishes in the sink every day. And it's like I'm always having to wash the dishes. I'm like, are you washing the dishes? Yeah, they leaving me dishes in the sink. I was like, okay, so I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, that's funny you say that, Colin. It's like sometimes I'll be hanging out with someone and I'm like looking at them and they look happy. They seem happy, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're stressed and tired and frustrated, and you're not showing me any of that. But I feel like one could probably assume that everyone is experiencing all those things to some extent at all times.
Yes.
Yeah. You know? I mean, a couple of clear examples are the men's retreat I led in the beginning of September. All these guys, super professional, super successful, have great families. You know, from the outside, from the way they present as a family man to the way they're actually dressed, they look good, right? Like it's all put together. You know, fast forward 12 hours later, we've gone through a bunch of processing. All of us are crying around the campfire, talking about that feeling of like, I feel completely alone in this. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to talk about it. Right. And I've been trying to dismantle that like barrier in my mind by just picking up the phone this week and calling folks and going, hey man, I've been in a weird fight with my wife this week. Here's the situation. Oh yeah. You know, and just like you said, like, it's kind of universal. It's like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've been through something similar. And
exactly.
Oh man, it's so much better.
It's like that because of the pressures of society put on men. You have to be this grandiose type of guy that just does everything and not complain. And that's just it's not easy. I have a lot of like my two good friends, they're younger than me. And I'm sort of the mentor. One just bought a house, one just had a baby. So one had a baby maybe 3 years ago. And I was like, when you have that baby, that gym shit is over. At least 4 years. Trust me.
Yeah.
He was like, nah, I'm gonna still be in the gym and be working out. I'm like, it's not gonna happen. He's like, hilarious. I'm telling you, when the baby comes, it's over. At least 4 years, and you'll probably, be on a comeback trail. So exactly what I said happened. Yeah. So then my other friend just had it happen. And we're both telling him, when you have that baby, it's gonna be over.
That's cool, man.
So he's like, nah, I'm be still in the gym. And then the one that already went through it, he said, look, OG, he did call me OG. He said, OG told me the same thing. Just be prepared that it's not gonna happen. And then obviously it didn't happen. So he's on the comeback trail right now. But just to have that precursor to just to give him the heads up, like this is what's about to happen. So then when it does happen, you're not just like, it's happening and I'm all by myself. You could say like, all right, somebody already lived through this.
Yeah.
And if they made it through, I know I can make it through also. Yeah, and I think that's what's needed to hear.
Having someone in your corner, you know, that, like, I love that term. A lot of my romantic partners, like they would say this line, I want someone to have my back, you know, or I want to have someone's back. Right. So I love that term, and just having someone have your back and what that looks like, I think is an interesting thing too. Last night, I had kind of a difficult conversation with, was like not a breakup conversation, but it was someone I had been dating and we hadn't had a closure conversation. So we're going to go have this closure conversation, right? My friend, I kind of do too now. But like, you know, me and Ron talk about adult things on here and like fancy ourselves, you know, it's like we're doing a good job in life, you know, treat people well and we're treating people even better and thriving in life, you know, in all the ways. And just like, it's like kind of like, yeah, it's like I got this. I feel like I got this. I can do this with my people and the support. And I fucking totally failed at this conversation. Like I was like a kid, man. I was like a bratty little kid in moments, not overall.
Couldn't verbalize it. Couldn't verbalize the feelings.
I failed. My emotions got the best of me, and I did actually make some decent decisions that didn't turn it into a really bad conversation, like an argument or something. But I just wasn't at my best. That's the point. I wasn't a bratty kid, but I was not at my best. And long story short, I like was leaving that, and I was just feeling kind of frustrated with myself and sad for her, you know, because I said a hurtful thing, you know, and I basically just walked out on the conversation, the in-person version of hanging up on someone, which is not cool.
Right.
And Ronald texted me, or I texted him, and I just decided to share that information when normally I probably wouldn't. You know?
Would have put it in a box.
I would have just taken it myself and taken it down the street and crunched up the paper and like thrown it away or read it again. You know what I mean? I would have dealt with it my own. And so I didn't. And I just like put a little bit out for Ron, and he sent me back immediately. Hey man, you want to talk? And I was like, I'm sitting in a jazz club right now. I'm listening to some live jazz. I was just like, I'm taking this on my own, but it's nice to text. And he texted back something to the effect of, after I told him a little bit about what's going on, it was just really supportive. And it was like, it wasn't really speaking to the parts of me that did not really show up in that conversation. It just concentrated and focused on how I did in the ways that I did. And he kind of like patted me on the back and he's like, good job. Essentially, it could have been worse. And you did a good job. And I was just like, that's not what my voice was saying at all.
Right.
But after I considered it, and I didn't want to either, because I was kind of like feeling a little bit guilty.
Yeah.
You know, last thing you want to hear when you're feeling that way sometimes is, no, it's not as bad as you think. You did a good job. It's like, fuck you, no, I didn't. But he was right, man. He was right. Yeah. You know, it was better than it was a year ago if that same thing would happen. You know, and it's just like, I felt like that person had my back, you know, and Ron had my back last night, and it felt good and I needed it. And it made it for an easier night the rest of the night.
Right. Damn, that's nice.
I appreciated that, Ron. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for that. Right. You fulfilled your required public, acknowledgement of this situation.
I'll give you $20 later.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Did I say it right, Ron?
It's close enough. I can edit it, make it sound perfect. It'll be like my bio. People hear every time.
Yeah,
that's funny. Colin, you talk a little bit about addiction here and there in your quotes and stuff. And I'm a person who doesn't drink anymore. I'm a non-drinker. And I don't see that coming back into my life. I definitely have a tendency to be all or nothing with things. And in my brain, I don't know if it's the reptilian part of my brain or like the next level up, which is kind of the still like, you know, looking for, I don't know, you know, the next level up. But it is
birds or mammals or something.
Yeah. Crawling, weird. You know, the animal crawling out of the the ocean, whatever that is. So I identify a lot. I don't know if I call myself an addict, but I know that I know what it feels like to not have control over something. Big time. And I think we live in a time where most of us have some form of that. In other words, we're doing something we don't want to do. We're aware of it, and it feels like a compulsion. And sometimes, man, like that is as innocuous as our addiction to screens, and then can get even more sinister when we're not only addicted to screens, we're addicted to like the fame of social media, or who knows what it is. Maybe we just want to like read bad news all the time,
right?
And then I know you're huge into the food world, but then there's the whole American salt, fat, sugar, addiction column, right? And then there's we're not even touching drugs or alcohol yet, and yet those are also rampant.
So many things to be addicted to, especially wow. I would say personally, the only thing I'm probably addicted to at some point is gonna be that that adrenaline from working out. Like that would probably, the endorphins that you get after a good workout.
Yeah.
It's probably something that I'm addicted to.
Do you think everybody can get access to that? Or do you think your brain makeup, nerve system is like, you just have a tendency to that?
I think everybody has some level of an addiction sort of piece in them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And for me, I'm constantly kind of noticing what I'm addicted to and how to, and then it's always kind of like a challenge to turn it off for me. I would go like a month with say a pre-workout, just to keep it in like a fitness sort of feel.
Yeah.
I would be like, I need this pre-workout. I got to work out. I won't even feel good unless I'm taking this pre-workout.
Right.
And 30 days will go by and I'll say, you know what? Let's see how you do without it now. And then I would challenge myself not to take a pre-workout. And the first week or two, I feel like I'm going through this sort of withdrawal. Oh, I'm not even performing good because I don't have the pre-workout. And then that's the part that I'm always, for lack of a better word, always afraid of, to say, I need to go back and get on this pre-workout. So then I would force myself not to do it. And then like right now, I've been maybe 3 months, no pre-workout. But then it's like, maybe I want to try it to see what the difference is. I'm always kind of experimenting with my body that way. People would ask me what I eat, like what type of protein. And I'm like, I'm not taking any supplements right now. So I'll go 30 days on, 30 days off, just to kind of see where my body is, kind of
that's awesome.
See how it feels. And I noticed that that's something that I constantly do.
That I feel like that must be one of the best practices. I've heard that is a good thing to do. Take breaks from certain food groups, take breaks from this, like anything you do a lot of, just take a break from it. What a great check,
That was always, that's something that's always interesting for me. Even with alcohol, I drink every now and then, but sometimes I would say, I'm not going to drink for 30 days and just kind of challenge myself to not drink. And then I would notice that I would be craving a drink.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, this is interesting, because you're not paying attention to it until you take it away.
Oh, 100%. Anytime I'm like, no sugar this month. And suddenly I'm like, eyeballing the sugar in the grocery store.
Yeah. Oh, I did that. I did no sugar for a week. And for me, I would always say, I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't do this. I don't do that. Yeah. And then I took it out of my oatmeal and my tea in the morning. And I was like, I want some sugar in this oatmeal right now. This sucks, And then I didn't realize it at the time that, man, I really needed the sugar. So that I had to really fight for a whole week not to put sugar in my oatmeal or in my tea. And that's pretty hard.
Did you notice when you did that? Just a little side note on taking sugar out. Every time I've taken sugar out of my diet, after a little bit while, natural sugars taste really, really good, like fruit. Fruit will start tasting good again.
Yes.
You noticed that?
Definitely. It was like the blueberries tasted better.
Yeah.
The bananas were like more of it really, your taste buds kind of really came alive because that sugar wasn't there to kind of just automatically sweeten anything. I think Monday I'm going to do no sugar for a week.
See, Ronnie's cutting for sign, man.
Yeah.
So the title of this podcast is Cutting for Sign, and and that's a pretty archaic tracking term. The idea is that when you're cutting for sign, when you're tracking something, sign is anything that the animal or person or whatever left behind, the little clues and little examples of the little like bent twigs and footprint, you know. And then cutting that sign is like finding it and then delineating what it means. And so we just use it as a metaphor for life. Like the thing that we're tracking is a more authentic, better expressed, more real version of ourselves. Let's track the little signs that life leaves us, you know, and let's find that and, you know, become it. And so it's like basically finding meaning in life. You know, meaning in
Colin, I used to tell people, and I haven't said this out loud in a while, that my calling, my purpose in life is to become as emotionally, spiritually, and physically whole and well as possible, and how to teach it, and then to teach others to do the same.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you a personal question.
I feel like that's my path right now.
That's your path too? Yeah.
Yeah. I really feel like I had a good friend. His name was Rodolfo, and we worked together for a while. And he was really spiritual, into church, and we would talk, or he would see me talk. I was a manager at like Old Navy or something, and we had this thing called like the 1 minute meeting. And I would be doing my 1 minute meeting and talking, and he would just say, like, you know what, man, you affect so many people. He's like, I don't know how you're not a preacher. He's like, you should really look at being a preacher. I'm just like, I don't even see myself that way. Yeah. But I've always noticed over the years that people would say, you know, something you said really resonated with me, or something I saw you do something. Yeah. You didn't see me watching you, but I saw what you did, and that really resonated with me. So I kind of feel like, back to what you said, that's kind of like the path that I'm on organically, not mindset to do it. That's just who I like to be. I
don't know if you're aware of this in yourself, and maybe you are. I think the reason people feel that way about you, and I'm gonna totally assume, and it may be completely wrong, is you just described in the last few minutes your ability to have integrity with yourself, and you're able to say, like, I want to do this. I'm going to recognize the difficulties, and then I'm going to do it.
Like whether that's not with quitting stuff.
Yeah, quitting stuff. Like being able to stay on point, working out, being able to stay on point with food, dude. 99.9% of us like cannot control how we eat and consume things, and like, it feels.
I haven't had red meat in maybe 30 years.
Holy moly! I ate the biggest, juiciest steak last night ever.
Wow. And I think learning to cut, the first thing I cut out of my diet was pork. I had some friends that were Muslim, and they were like, oh, you shouldn't eat pork, it's bad for you, blah, 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 don't eat pork. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna eat any pork. And my father's Jamaican. He's like, man, pork is like the sweetest meat ever. Are you crazy? Yeah. So he would say, sweetest. I never forget, my father would say, you won't eat pork until you're starving. And he said, you have too much. So you have a good life. To sit here and say that you're not gonna eat a certain type of food means that you got too much in life. Like, so he's like, that's good for you. So he was happy with the fact that he had got me to the point where I was comfortable saying no to something.
So just real quick to clarify, you're saying that when you told your father you weren't going to eat pork, he saw that as a sign of abundance, that you could choose. You didn't have to eat that.
Right.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool that you're dead.
Yeah, he was saying that he was like, you have too much in life where you can make a choice. And he didn't equate it to religion or anything. And I was like, well, there's a lot of religions where people don't eat pork. He was just like, well, you're not in that religion. He's like, so you're making a conscious decision to say, I'm not going to eat this.
But he also wasn't guilting you like, oh, you had that's why I thought you were going with it. Yeah.
Like, he wanted me to really see the big picture of what I was doing.
Wow.
So that led me to not eating beef because he had made pork chops and he had seasoned it with this gravy and it looked like a steak. So at the time I was still eating steak. So I had ate the pork chops, and at that time I hadn't had pork in maybe a year or so. And I had I was violently upset, like sick.
And you didn't even know it was pork.
I didn't know
when you got sick.
Right.
Oh,
so a couple days later, I said, Dad, man, I said, something was wrong with that steak. That meat was no good. So he was like, what steak? What are you talking about? I was like, you made steak the other day and I got so sick. And he was like, boy, that wasn't steak. That was a pork chop.
Dude, wild.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
So he was saying, if you can't tell the difference between pork and a steak, then maybe you shouldn't be eating meat too.
Whoa. Dad, dude, you're a supportive man.
Yeah. So I said, you know what? I'm done eating red meat too. How's that? And that was and I came off like the burgers and all that other stuff. Whoa. And then I just been that was like my first introduction into like being vegan, which now I'm not totally vegan because I've been having like some fish and some chicken. I read this book. I'm way off topic. All right, but I read this book, and it was called The Blue Zones.
Oh yeah,
and the Blue Zones, it was like people that live in these certain areas. Everybody lived past 100 years.
Yeah,
Okinawa and stuff.
Yeah,
right. So
parts of Italy.
Right. So in these areas, they didn't eat a lot of meat, but they had three things that were in common. There was some physical aspect, some spiritual aspect, and there was the food that they ate. And in these different areas, based on economy, what was there provided for them, they at once in a while they would have some meat, or they would have some fish, or they would have some chicken. And my daughter is 16 now, and she's hanging out. Her friends are eating, different foods. And she's like, well, at least, I want to have some chicken or some fish. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have some chicken and some fish with you. And I didn't, it kind of took me off of that. I'm not eating this, or I'm not eating that. Like, I was never a Bible thumper for being a vegan. Like, you should be vegan. I'm always, because I always felt like back to my father in the relationship of saying that you've reached a certain point where you don't have to eat something. It's all about your economic structure. What are you available not to do? So it's expensive eating healthy. So I understand where you know what, maybe you don't have it not to eat this way, and you still have to survive. So I'm never down on anybody for doing whatever they need to do. Just make good conscious decisions.
I appreciate you saying that, man. I feel the same way. That's awesome. Because you don't want to. I do think it's not cool and not respectful for some people who are vegan to judge people for eating the food that they can afford, or what I mean? Yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
Well, to tie it back to what I was saying earlier, man, like because most of us, like whether it's choice or because it feels like compulsion to eat, like we like don't have control. When we witness somebody who can, it just immediately feels like we're around somebody who knows something that we don't, and who has access to some part of themselves that we don't. And we lean in, man. That's why we want to know. That's why, like, we see someone like you and we're like, tell me your secrets. Like, like, how did you do this?
It's more, man, it really, now I'm just, because it's been so long, it's not even in my mental makeup to say, I'm going to have a burger, or I want a steak. It's just so far gone and removed from my diet that it's never even a thought process to have it.
Yeah, that's how I feel about alcohol too. It's like it doesn't even come up as an option.
Colin, does that keep you from the thing that makes me concerned about that? The only thing I've removed for a long time from my diet to any extent is wheat.
Yeah.
And because it was inflaming my lungs for a long time.
Wow.
But I,
just for a second, it's a
yeah,
lot of people that are eating foods that are harming them that won't even make the connection that it's harming them.
It took me a long time to figure out it was wheat.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that was my next question: was how did you figure out that wheat was bothering you? Because you wouldn't think that a grain would be harming you, because you're told that you need to have, that pyramid that they teach in high school and in school growing up, that you need to eat these certain foods, but it's really just on that pyramid is just based on training you to keep the economic structure going.
Right.
Exactly.
Things from the farms.
And not only that, but it hadn't been hurting me for a long time. Like I was a distance runner in college, and I ran hundreds of miles. Like I ran into 100-mile weeks. Like it was a really intense, lots of calories. And so we would eat a lot of pasta and pancakes and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
I never had a problem with my lungs. I had world-class lungs. I mean, not world-class like I was the best runner in the world, but definitely top 1% of, you run a long ways and pretty fast. So lungs were never an issue. And then all of a sudden, boom, within a 4 or 5 month period, I was living in Australia, and my lungs just started to fill up with stuff. And I was breathing with the top 10% of my lungs. Jeez. I was drowning. I could barely walk.
That's scary.
I went into the hospital, and I had 2 severe lung infections. And then for about 1.5 years after that, I was like, what the hell happened? Because it kept coming back after you batten it down with antibiotics. So I just started removing stuff from my diet. I would just remove something for 1 month. And by the time it was wheat's turn, I just felt like I could breathe again.
Yeah.
Interesting. Great. I mean, I had the same experience just this last week with eggplant. They're like nightshades, potatoes. Like if I eat any of that stuff, I know the next pizza that I know the next day. Like there's a serious, both physiological and mental like shift. Yes. And I got the blood work done, all that stuff, and I accidentally ate some eggplant, and I forgot about it, and I felt like garbage the next day. I couldn't believe how bad it felt.
As I understand it too, I think and this is another topic, and I know we're kind of running up against some time here, but just to at least open the conversation, because I do think it's an interesting and important one, is that we have all of these like we're living in a traumatic environment, just these cities tossed up, in a matter of decades, and cars whirling and planes were like, the human psyche and body is getting chucked all over this world at rates that it had never had.
Absolutely.
It's traumatic just living life, let alone the abuses that many of us experience through, actual abuse, like you're getting beaten or there's a lot of like violence out there. So as I understand it, there's a connection between these traumatic experiences and our immune system. And our immune system responds really, our body chemistry responds obviously a lot to food, and something about trauma, our immune system and food that connects. And I know there's a lot of discussion and education around it that's happening right now. But
I think just on that note, you left out one piece, which is the stress levels. The stress is really what drives your immune down. I feel like the stress level is probably the key component to your immune system, and just drains you. And
like cortisol and all that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm fascinated with that connection though. And like you say, and then stress level making any your body's capacity to potentially not have your immune system overreact to foods because of trauma in the past. And there's just something going on there with all that discussion that I find pretty fascinating.
I think that the trend, thankfully now, and I think you're on the head of that trend, Colin, is we're understanding that how we feel is more connected by what we're putting in our body, what we're making our body do now than it was in the past. Nice. Like we thought, at the beginning of the conversation, you're like, I need the stuff. I need the car, the house, the wife, to make me feel that way. Tons of people achieve that and they go, shit, I feel worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel worse.
Or you don't see people who don't have a lot committing suicide. they're always figuring out a way to kind of just be happy with what they have. But then you have people that just have everything and then they kill themselves. Yeah. And you're looking at them like, you have all this money, you have all this fame, and you commit suicide, and you can't even, it's like you can't even imagine what will make them do that.
Yeah.
And it's so having all of those things is it's just not where it's at. It's, I you know, it'd be nice to aspire. You want to live comfortable, but I think that's the main thing. You want to be comfortable where you are and comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
But just to stay on topic of putting what you're putting into your body, and how it relates to the way you feel. I think being from like a West Indian upbringing, my parents were always they would be like, oh, you got to drink this certain tea. It'd be like a Cersei tea. And it would be something that would, it would clean your blood system.
Yeah.
And at the time, I wouldn't really equate it to what it was for, but it was something that just was handed down to them from their parents, that this is, you eat this certain food a certain time of the year. Like we would, she would say, it'd be like going back to school. All summer we were eating junk. So it was like, well, now you got to drink this Cersei tea. And that would be like our immune booster to go back to school. And it was just like traditions of eating certain things a certain time of year to bring us back just mentally. Or they would say, you're eating too much sugar. Look at your skin.
Yeah.
It's coming out through your body.
Yeah.
Or you stay off the candy, stay off the sweets. You're jumping off you're jumping up and down all over the place. Go sit down. And it'd be like, go read a book. You know what I mean? Like calm your mind down.
Yeah.
So that is definitely the relation of what you're putting into your system and how it makes you feel. It was something that I learned early on that I never paid attention to. But now as I'm older, in retrospect, it's like all of those good things that I really should be paying attention to is stuff that I'm really starting to get back to.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like we could talk 2 more hours just about parenting and this kind of thing. Like your parents sound totally fascinating. Out of curiosity, what part of England were you born in?
I was born in a town called Reading, like it's right outside of London or something like that.
Yeah. I lived in Birmingham for a couple of years and had some West Indies friends that chilled out with. Good folks. Yeah. Man, Colin, I could just keep talking to you over and over and over again. And so I'm definitely going to reach out and just force you to be on my unofficial board of directors.
Okay.
You can also say no.
Definitely.
That's a good way to never hear from Colin again.
Yeah, Colin's like, block.
I'm going to force you to be on my board of directors. It's like, noted. And Ron is blocked.
And Ron is blocked from everything.
Oh, man.
I really appreciate you. I mean, there are a million fitness influencers on Instagram, and I don't even remember how I found you. But it was your positivity, your emotional, spiritual quality that is somehow finding its way through all that stuff. And
I really tried to the spirituality is more letting people know that you can detach yourself from the ego of I need to be the biggest, the strongest, the best in the fitness industry. And it's really kind of just don't worry about the likes, the popularity, because I tell my guys, man, it could all be gone tomorrow. And then what is that? What are you without that?
Yeah.
And that's what I really try to focus on. Like even though the followers has helped me reach out and meet more people. Yeah. Like it's got me to meet you guys, and I love this conversation. But at the same time, I still need to be grounded in the fact that I am who I am, with or without Instagram feed. Yeah. And I just need to be myself.
Do you agree with the statement? We'll end with this. Do you agree with the statement that health is wealth?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, it's like you can have all of those things, and if you're not healthy, how are you going to enjoy it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Solid, man. I appreciate you so much.
I was really hoping you'd just say no.
Get the hell out of here, Daniel.
No, not really. And end of conversation.
I want to say, man, it was really, really nice talking to you guys. I'm glad I made it on. I set my timer. I was running around all morning. I was like, the alarm went off 30 minutes early. It's like, I'm rushing home. I stopped everything I was doing. I'm glad I did it.
Hey, especially not having never met us or even talked to us, to come on and open up, and not only just your time, but like we've never met. Maybe you don't know we've vibed together. It's just
and I think
good,
that is the plus side to social media, when you do get to just meet new people and genuine
100%,
and just have great conversations like this.
It's so fun, man. Yeah, totally.
Thank you, man. I'm going to be coming out to New York in the next year, and have a couple of friends in Brooklyn. I'd love to come by that restaurant and have a little dinner.
Come by the restaurant, come get a workout, do the whole thing.
Sounds good, my friend. Awesome. Thank you, Colin. Really appreciate you.
All right.
Appreciate you, Colin. Take care of yourself, man.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
man. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Awesome.
Colin Daring. Field dressing, man. That was awesome. That was I don't even know what I was expecting, but I was surprised and delighted the whole time.
Yeah. What, I like this habit of talking to people on here that we have never met.
We call it special episodes like, perfect strangers.
I suspect that's going to happen more and more, because I don't know, we're doing something cool and it's starting to like attract people who, I don't know. That was neat that he said that at the end, that it was valuable to him, because he had said earlier in the conversation that his time is very valuable. And he's giving it away too much. So he gave it to
man.
Us,
that is a gift to get to, there's nothing I can add to what he said. I'm almost hesitant to rehash things he said, because I don't want to cheapen it or water it down. And, but here I go.
Well, just saying it in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, his I think when we look at someone like Colin and wonder what their secret sauce is, I think one of the secret sauces he's got is his parents. And that shows you that, like, it matters. It matters. Like, your family upbringing really matters. And if you come from a shitty one, like, it's okay to recognize how hard that's been, but then the fix isn't to continue to be mad at your parents. It's to parent yourself in the way that you should have been parented, and then to decide to be that kind of person for your progeny, right? Like to decide to be that kind of man for your kids. And go ahead.
Yeah, good call. I was just thinking, well, one of my favorite parts of his story is when his dad was like, good for you for not eating pork. And then when his dad was like, well, if you're not eating pork, I forgot why exactly it was, but like, you should maybe not eat beef either,
Yeah.
Coming from a Jamaican pork loving, steak cooking dude, who's I don't know, he didn't say how old he was at that time, and I was curious about that, but I thought that was pretty amazing. But then later Colin said he kind of did the same thing with his daughter. He like started eating chicken and fish partially to do that with her,
Yeah.
Those are versions of each other.
It's powerful stuff. And the other thing that blew me away about his dad was him really, really plainly, without any judgment, saying, hey, if you're not going to be smart, you need to be strong. And dude, because of where I grew up, there was so much judgment, or at least for my family. I'll say this for my family in particular, my mom in particular, whom I love. She would always say things like, you need to get a degree so you don't end up like that guy as we're driving down the highway and see construction workers on the side of the road. And it was that kind of dig over and over again. And now that I'm adult, I'm looking at those guys on the side of the road going, that's honest work. They're making great livings. Like
they're probably also going to school or saving to go to school too. Cause I feel like that happens so much. People work rough jobs so they can do what they want to do.
Or the other thing is, like, they work their way up and they own the company. And some of the most successful people I know own construction companies or trade companies. Likewise. And it's like, who vilified that? And his dad is like, no, be strong, learn a trade. And I don't know if you know this, but we're in a trade deficit. Like we need welders, we need woodworkers, we need like all these trades that have been the backbone for the economy. Like people aren't doing it. And I love that aspect from his dad. And I think that's a rad thing, and something I'm trying to get my kids to understand too. That's like, trades are really important, and I want you to have a skill, whether it's for work or just to have in your life, so that you understand how things work and operate, and feel capable on your own.
Yeah. So people can take advantage of it and ask you to do too many things like they do for you. It's going to create more problems. Being a very capable person with a pickup is like the worst thing a person could do if they wanted to just have some alone time.
Well, actually, funny you say that, because we also are teaching our kids how to say no, and how to say, like, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. And just because it seems more fun to be around somebody doesn't mean you need to, or that's the right thing.
Well, that's one thing that when you were asking about superpowers, I was like, I would love my superpower to be able to say no,
Well, practice.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to practice. Go fuck yourself. That felt good.
Fell right into my trap.
Another thing about him that I wanted to say while we were talking, but just didn't come up, is he looks like he's about 5 different ages all at the same time.
Yeah, he could be 30 or 50 or 25.
You know
or 55.
What I mean?
Like,
man?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I don't know if you caught any of his pictures on his Instagram. Colin Daring 101. Dude, the dude is shredded.
Well,
I mean,
I thought he was older, but then when we were looking at him today, I was like, that dude could be 30.
Yeah, he is bad to the bone, man.
But I have no fucking clue how old he is. Like,
he's
really,
ageless. He's probably 10,000 years old. He's probably been around. He's probably seen empires rise and fall.
I think part of that is the vegan thing. I really do. I'm not vegan, and I'm not a proponent of being vegan necessarily. But wow, his face looks fucking young.
Man. Yeah. I mean, if there's a poster child, or a spokesperson for a healthy lifestyle, like the whole shebang, this guy's it, man.
Well, I don't know if that I would agree with that, because
I will fight you on this. I will fist fight you.
No, well, I'm gonna go to our guy Steve Maxwell on this, and I don't mean that just in any way.
Oh, we forgot to bring Steve Maxwell up. Okay, yeah.
I don't mean this to be like to say, oh, I don't think he's the poster child for being healthy. Like, obviously he's extremely healthy, but the one place that I would maybe not challenge him or challenge you, but that I would just bring up as discussion is the movement that he does with the heavy weights that he does it with seems to me that it would be really hard on the body at some point in time. And I would have liked to have talked to him about that, but we were just talking about other stuff.
I was thinking about some of that earlier, because I in the climbing world, like, there are parts of your bodies that take a lot of abuse. Shoulders, forearms, fingers, right? Those are classic.
Okay.
Injuries.
So older climbers do end up with problems in those areas?
Well, here's what I gotta say is there's plenty of older climbers that don't experience that. That was my point, is that I think sometimes genetics is part of it. I think another part of it is just not taking care of yourself, like not drinking, eating all the right things, and stretching, all that stuff. Because I was walking, I live across the street from one of the best climbing gyms on the planet, called Planet Granite, unofficially my sponsor. I spent hours now, so many hours in there, but I was walking by there the other day, and an older guy came out who is probably in his mid 50s. And I've seen that guy climb harder than any human I've seen climb in real life. Like, I've seen people on videos do harder, but this is just some guy in his mid 50s that lives in Portland. I was thinking about him. I was like, holy shit, he's kind of a supernatural among normal people, this dude walking around.
Yeah.
And you would never know how capable he is physically just looking at a guy on the street. But I've seen him climb, and it's like, oh geez, that's next level.
It's a good call. It probably I kind of wish we would have had the Steve Maxwell conversation with him now that we're getting into it, because Colin's not here to say what he would say about this.
Sure, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Because he looks amazing, and he looks amazing not just being fit, but his skin, his hair, his eyes, like, he just looks very
dude. He could also for sure be a model. Like, if he wanted to, he could be like, freaking be a runway model.
And a runway model. and yet I would like to ask him about his joint health.
Yeah.
And I also don't know if the stuff he does on his Instagram is the stuff he does every day. That might be because Steve Maxwell says that kettlebell practice and things like, especially the way that Colin does it, would be, that's not the thing you do to stay in shape. That's the thing that you're doing as your performance. That's the thing that you enjoy. That's the thing you love. That's the thing that's your jujitsu. That's your dance. That's your climbing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would just be curious how his joint health is, and right, if his joint health is really good, how much of that would have to do that he has an incredible diet, you know?
Yeah.
Steve Maxwell has an incredible diet, but Steve Maxwell also does a hell of a lot of jujitsu.
Yep.
Which can be really hard on your body. And
so hard, right? Dude. It is. That's the one thing I'm a little bit hesitant to going back to the mat is like, it's been really nice being injury free the last year. And not have these little like pain points all over my body from training or from practice or for not falling right, you know, and go ahead.
Sorry. No.
I mean, I've been, you know, the last 2 months or no. I can't remember how long, 24 weeks, however many months that is, half a year, 6 months. That's what that is. I've been doing like really kind of prehab workouts that have made me feel stronger than I've ever felt, because it's all the shit that I ignored, like my shoulders and the stability, and it's like stability stuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing a meditation the other night where I was scanning my body and talking to different parts of my body and like thanking my brain for working, thanking my, you know, just thanking parts of my body. And then I got to my shoulders and I had to apologize to him for treating him like shit for so long. And I felt that. I was like, hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry putting you through all this stuff and never took you seriously, never treated you the way you should have been treated. And Colin strikes me as the kind of guy who treats all of his body with a lot of respect and a lot of, you know, like intentionality.
I guess, having not heard a lot of his message, if a person saw what he did, okay, so like just for the listener, as we're like wrapping this up, Steve Maxwell is considered the father of American kettlebell. He essentially brought the kettlebell to America and was the first, if not the first, one of the first to do that and to organize it into a workout situation in America.
Yeah.
And he has since left, like he is now no longer a proponent of the kettlebell as a workout that would maintain good health. He's a proponent of the kettlebell if that's something you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But he would say you're probably doing it at the cost of your joints, depending on how you're doing it. Well, the way that Colin moves the kettlebell, he's basically juggling the fucking thing. Like he does he's very tricky. And that's one of the things
I've never tried a single one of his like tosses because I live in an apartment. It would just shoot through the floor and, you know, keep on going.
So I would say that like, it's kind of interesting that we've had both of these guys on the show because, you know, Colin does kettlebell in a way that I would think Steve Maxwell would say is like it really hard on the body.
Yeah.
And I know that Colin does it with good form and all that stuff, but I just would be curious what Colin would say about the Steve Maxwell take and vice versa, you know?
Yeah.
And if Colin agrees,
maybe we should have them both back on and like battle each other about this stuff. Actually, I think really what it speaks to more than anything is like there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and the, you know, when we were talking about diet earlier, I think different people have different diet requirements, and some people can operate on pasta, no problem.
For sure.
Other people, like, they need special attention. Other people would live off fucking eggplants all day long. For some reason, you know, it's very upsetting to my whole system for me to eat it.
Yeah.
And back to my point about like fitness, like the 55-year-old dude who can climb way harder than I ever could dream of climbing. Like, there's just a lot of different ways to be. And I think that Steve's probably erring on the side of like longevity and on like injury freeness, and
but
probably
Colin does too. That's in his mission statement, longevity of the pack, you know?
Yeah. And I think Colin is like, maybe he's just kind of a freak dude. Like, he can do shit like, you know, normal mortals can't.
Or maybe he has a great diet. He has you know, maybe he's doing a bunch of supportive stuff
totally
behind the scenes or in front of the scenes. Like we haven't watched all this stuff. But then the other thing I was going to say, the reason I brought up Steve and all that stuff is that if a person just went onto the internet and saw Colin and then tried to pick up a thing and do that stuff, they would probably fuck themselves up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
And so it's not a disparaging thing in any way against Colin. I just kind of wish we would have brought that topic up, because we just had these essentially two elite kettlebellists on the show. Like, and
that's funny. We didn't even mean to do that. That's amazing.
I've never. Anyways.
Yeah. Hey man, I know we could keep talking about this. I'm trying to find some excuse to get Colin back at a certain point, and I'm kind of, maybe we should have like a health panel that they all, like, you know, talk about what
I think he would probably, you know, maybe a couple years down the line or something, he'd probably come talk to us again. He seemed like he really valued that conversation.
He's a good dude. Yeah, he's a good dude, and I'm actually not gonna make him be on my
dude,
virtual board of directors.
Stuff like that, dude.
Making people feel obligated right away.
Like,
it's kind of
in the world of consent. That's your other. That's your other. Your what do you call it? The alter ego. That's another part of it, man. Stuff like that. Just like, I'm gonna make you. Ronald, you are a character sometimes.
I'm an idiot sometimes.
In the words of the wolf, this is the second time we're going to quote Pulp Fiction on the same show. That's pretty cool. Just because you are a character doesn't mean you have character.
Oh shit, that is such a good way to end this episode. Well done, man. Well done.
You do have both, though. You are and have character.
I appreciate that. Thanks for also you know, rolling with my very shitty jokes sometimes. I'm testing them out. There's a part of me that wants to be funny, and I'm trying them out. And most of the time they don't work. It's the rake. You know, you step on the yard, it just like shoots up and hits me in the face.
I've had some of those on these shows. I'm just like, wow, Daniel, you're like, if so much of society wasn't supporting people being alive, natural selection would take me out. Sometimes I have those moments.
I'm so glad you said that. We're gonna keep going here. 110% I would be dead if I was born 100 years ago. Like I don't think I would have made it past childhood. I'm pretty sure I would just be like, oh, you know, like there's the baby gravestone, you know, and there's little Ronnie. We never know who he was.
There's the baby gravestone. You would have been a baby grave. Oh my God. That's dark, man.
I mean, look, dude, like you know, childhood mortality was really low, and I was like born with, you know, breathing problems because all the damn smokers around me and all that shit. And it's like, I see. You know,
you're passing the buck though. Still, you're kind of
blaming it on somebody else
a little bit.
Well, dude, like. Look, I mean, in one reality, we are the result of thousands and thousands and thousands of generations of the best survivors making it, right?
Wow, good call.
Right. And then at a certain point, modernity, technology, all that shit, let all of the other like things that should have been like wiped out, right? Like if we had let
they're now having kids.
They're having kids. Wow. And I'm gonna be like my parents and grandparents, like there's some of them like they should have like there's I love them, but dude, if you had set us off, like if you had set those people off in the wilderness to try to survive on their own, hell no. They would have not made it.
Luckily, they're still supported by those what created them was still the thousands of generations of survivors. So
totally,
it's going to take a while before you get like Mongol Ronald, who, you know,
Mongol Ronald, dude. I appreciate it. I hope I do have a little bit of Mong. I definitely have some Neanderthal in me, which is a little tiny bit, which is bad job on my side.
What a delight.
This is a delight. This is super good. I'm gonna end this. Thank you, Daniel. I love you.
See you next time.
Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for helping me to refine myself as iron sharpens iron. So one man sharpens another. I'm gonna hang on to that one. I'm not giving that one up.
How lead graphite
Get the fuck out of here, Daniel. Stop that shit. Don't ruin my good quote. Jeez, thousands of years of proverbs and wisdom, and you're trying to come up with a better one.
Lead sharpens lead. It's how lead graphite, a graphite pencil.
Stop. Get out of here. I'm cutting you off. You're cutting